There are so many cool jobs on a film set. And I'm not even talking about these big Hollywood movie productions. I'm talking about commercial jobs, corporate, or even documentary shoots. Basically anything that requires a small crew and goes beyond the solo filmmaker. In my opinion, there are jobs that are more fun than others, and usually a lot of people want to do the same thing, and that is either being the director or the director of photography. For me, this is also somewhat true. Most of the times I'm either the director of photography, sometimes I do first AC, but this is really rare, and I'm also sometimes on occasion the gaffer. A lot of the times on smaller jobs, especially these commercial corporate jobs, I'm the directing DP, whereas I am not only directing the talent and the client and kind of move along the story, but I'm also in charge of the camera department, the gaffer, the AC team, and I'm operating the camera myself. Although directing DP is one of the most fun jobs, sometimes I'd rather be just a director or just a director of photography, but most of the times there's this one position that combines a little bit of everything, but it's really hard to get, and a lot of the times, unfortunately, is also quite unrealistic. Let me tell you what that position is and why it's so hard to get. The position that I'm referring to is the directing DP that also has a dedicated camera operator. Let me explain. When you're the director, you don't really have anything to do with the camera department. You tell your director of photography what kind of look you want, and then it's their job to actually realize this. The director of photography is in charge of the entire camera department. They talk to lighting, they talk to the sound guys, as well as the AC team. And most of the times they're also operating the camera themselves. But then there's also the director of photography who has a dedicated camera operator, meaning they're in charge of the lighting department, the sound, the ACs, and also maybe even on a multicam shoot, the different camera operators. But they're not even touching the camera themselves because they're so busy just managing the lighting and just trying to realize the director's vision. And this is more true for bigger sets than on these small commercial or even corporate shoots. In reality though, a lot of the times we take up multiple roles. We are the director of photography, we are our own AC team, and we also do lighting and sound on the side. And this is also what we're proud of, and we should be, because as solo filmmakers, we are somewhat good at almost everything: sound, lighting, camera, and a little bit of directing. But if you're being honest, as soon as a project gets a little bit bigger, there's actors involved, something has to suffer. Having worked on bigger sets in the past and now basically always working with a crew, even if it's as little as 3 people, it is a tremendous difference when there is a person for each dedicated department. And you don't have to worry about the sound, the AC, even the camera or the lighting, and you can just focus on whatever it is your position on set. And it is not only way more fun to work that way, but I think it's also more efficient, and it will also show in the quality in the end. Having said all that, the job that I basically do the most is the directing DP, being in charge of the camera department, the lighting, the AC team, the camera itself, but also kind of giving advice to the talent and directing them as well. This is also the role that I took up on our latest short film, 2 Truths One Lie, which is going to be released next week here on this YouTube channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss it. I was directing the talent because I was the one that has written the short film, so I really wanted to get my vision across. But I also wanted to have it shot the way that I wanted to, so I was also the director of photography. And I was also shooting it myself. We did have a crew of 10 people. I had a first AC, second AC, a gaffer, a grip, etc, etc. So there were a lot of people that actually were really good at their jobs and they did exactly what I wanted them to do. But me actually operating the camera at the same time as directing, I noticed that you can't really be at all places at once. Because once I'm framing my shots and I'm looking through the camera and also taking care of the camera movement, it's really hard to notice these subtle nuances in the acting, the emotions, or even if there's some mistakes in the script. So here, what I would have loved for this short film is to be the director as well as the director of photography, but have somebody else operate the camera for me and have a dedicated camera operator. Because this way I could have had a director's monitor and still take care of the lighting and also give instructions to my camera operator on how I want the camera to be moved, which angles I want to have covered, but I would have had a lot more of room to actually direct the talent and give them instructions as well. And the same is true for smaller commercial jobs. And I know in my video in December I said that I'm quitting commercial work, and that has also been true for the most part, but I still have some long-term clients that I didn't want to let down. So once in a while I'll still have my existing clients call me up, and then we still do a job for them. One of these jobs we had last week, and we were just a small crew of 3 people. It was me, the directing DP, one first AC who was also pulling focus, and one assistant that was taking care of light and also everything that needed to be done. But here I also noticed the same thing, because directing the protagonists and framing them and then also taking care of the camera as well as giving directions to the first AC and my lighting assistant is a lot to manage, especially because we were shooting on a gimbal for 8 hours a day for 2 shooting days. This also gets really exhausting. So I would have loved to be the directing DP here and have a dedicated camera operator. So why not just do it? Because here it gets tricky, especially when it comes to commercial work or even narrative films or any kind of project really. And the one thing it boils down to is, of course, the budget. Let's give you 2 examples. One is a small commercial job where you're dealing with the client directly, and the other one is a bigger production where you're being hired as a production company and you outfit the entire thing with the crew as well as the equipment. Scenario number 1. Let's say it's a hotel and they want 5 videos for their hotel. So you think about how long it would take. It's probably 2 shooting days. You need a crew of 3 people, me plus 2 others. And then you also have all the equipment, and maybe you need to drive there back. Then there's the editing for the 5 videos, etc., etc. So you come up with a nice round number in your head. For ease of purposes, let's just call it $10,000. So now you can tell the client it will cost $10,000. Client says, yes, let's go. All right, but that is only you and 2 other people. Now you want a dedicated camera operator, so you can focus more on directing as well as being the director of photography, so you add another person to the mix. A dedicated camera operator, depending on where you are and what is their skill level, especially when you're shooting on a gimbal for 2 days straight, will probably run you another $600 to $1,200. For ease of purposes, let's just make it an even $1,000. So now the client would have said yes to $10,000, but now we're actually charging them 20% more. We're charging them $12,000, and the client is getting the exact same thing. They're getting 5 videos in return. Cool. Client says yes to $12,000. But now you can think about it. All right, now I'm getting $12,000 for this project, but the extra $2,000 are going to another person that is doing a job that you potentially could have done. And the client would have said yes to $12,000 as well as $10,000, because you're not really breaking down the costs as much when it comes to dealing with clients directly on these smaller commercial jobs. So now you could have just said, all right, I'm still charging $12,000, but I'm operating the camera myself. And now you just earned yourself $2,000 more. And I think that's actually fair, because at the end of the day, you're actually doing one more job, because you're not just the directing DP, but you're also the directing DP and you lug around the camera for 2 days straight. So you get what I'm saying, right? So you basically have to decide what it's worth to you to have a dedicated camera operator on set. Because in my personal experience, when dealing with clients directly, it's always you break down the cost in your head and then you give them the number, and then they either agree or they don't. But again, if they would have agreed to the higher number, you could have also done it with one person less. Sometimes the client even gives you a budget upfront and says, hey, we have $15,000 for you to shoot 5 videos for us. And then again, you have to decide, do I want to include another camera operator in these $15,000 and then, well, again, make $2,000 less? Or am I doing it myself and earn $2,000 more? So here's scenario number 2. It's a bigger job. It could be a narrative film, a bigger commercial, or even a documentary. And you break down every cost because a producer reaches out to you and says, hey, we need a team to shoot this or that, and we need 4 days of shooting. Can you come up with a crew? And then you have to explain to them that, yes, I will be the director and the director of photography, if that is actually the case and they don't already have a director, but you also need a dedicated camera operator. And in this scenario, I think there will be a lot of discussion as to why you, when you're already the director of photography, are not operating the camera yourself. And then you can start making the argument that if you're also directing, that you will focus more on the talent, and it is so much better to have a dedicated camera operator. And in a lot of cases, it also makes more sense and it's cheaper to have you as the director of photography and have a dedicated camera operator than to have one director and a dedicated director of photography. In a lot of cases, this will actually be the same amount of money or sometimes even more. But not gonna lie, it's always going to be somewhat of a hard sell. So to wrap everything up, it really depends on the situation. It depends on your comfort level. Also, sometimes if it's worth for you to not have to operate the camera and can fully focus on managing the camera department as well as directing the clients, the protagonists, or the talents, or if it's not worth it for smaller jobs. It has to be a little bit of an individual sell for every situation, but if it was up to me, I would always like to be the director of photography. Unless the project is getting really big and the director of photography is such a big job in and of itself that I want to have a dedicated director of photography, and then maybe even a camera operator on top of it. So let me know in the comments below, what is your preferred position on set, on smaller commercial jobs as well as bigger sets, and have you ever been a directing VP that also has a dedicated director of photography? I hope you liked this video, and if you did, then please give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe because we have a lot of really cool content coming out. I'm going to upload about twice a week for at least the next 4 to 6 weeks, and there will be a short film, behind the scenes, breakdowns, you name it. So I hope to see you on the next one.